To get started here. It is, you have everyone but Craig Murphy? Okay. Shoot. He just joined, perfect. He's towards the end anyway, so he even has time to get situated. It is 12:01, so we will get started. Thank you everyone for joining us today. The purpose of today's hearing is to review the 2021 capital improvement budget and the 5-year capital improvements program proposed by Mayor Ginther last week. My goal as finance chair is to make these investments open and accessible to the public. These projects are some of the most direct ways we make investments in our neighborhoods. Water and sewer projects, repaving streets, installing sidewalks, recreation and parks facilities, and more. These all have a direct impact on quality of life. We want to provide not only information on this budget and these investments here today, but also we want to continue receiving feedback on neighborhood priorities today and really throughout the year. This year, Council connected throughout this year with area commissions and civic associations to solicit capital investment priorities in their areas. And that input is crucial because no one is a greater expert on their neighborhood than the people who live there. I'm grateful to the area commissions and civic associations and everyone who volunteers their time to serve on them for their work providing feedback. I know some have signed up to provide comment at these hearings, and I appreciate your ongoing engagement. We look forward to continuing to work with you. I also want to thank Mayor Ginther, Auditor Kilgore, Director Lombardi, and the whole finance department team, as well as staff from each department for their work on this budget here before us today. I appreciate the time city staff has taken to review and address the neighborhood requests that council has received through that very deliberative process I mentioned between my office and the community engagement office and the work of council members to receive resident input. Not every request we receive has been addressed in every year's budget, but my commitment is to continue incorporating public input into this process. I also look forward to department presentations covering some of the projects that are planned or funded in this budget and that directly address the priorities that have been submitted to us. I'm really proud to support some of the major investments being made through this budget as well, which Mayor Ginther highlighted in his press conference last week to unveil the budget. These really reflect the priorities that this council worked with the mayor and the administration to fund. Everything from affordable housing to safe sidewalks to recreation and park facilities to equitable investments in tree plantings, implementation of the urban forestry master plan, and a whole lot more. At this hearing, each department will review their proposed capital improvement budget and their investments in more detail. Thank you so much to my colleagues for being a part of this process. I want to leave space for Councilmember Favor if there's any comment she'd like to make at the top. Fantastic. We will then proceed from here directly into department presentations. So we will start with the Director of the Finance Department, Director Joe Lombardi.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Brown. As you had indicated, the capital budget is not the work of one person or one group. It is an exercise of a lot of individuals and a lot of different departments and a lot of input. I would like to thank Mayor Ginther and Chief of Staff Ken Paul for their guidance throughout this process. I'd like to thank President Pro Tem Brown for your leadership as the Finance Chair Committee. I also like to thank Council President Harden and all the other council members, City Auditor Megan Kilgore, and all the department staff and the directors who have been so instrumental in helping us put together this 2021 capital budget. And I'd be remiss if I did not thank the wonderful staff of the Finance Department, Kyle Seaver-Hart, who does a tremendous job of keeping it all together. And she's also my memory bank when I can't remember details. She always has them ready for me. Angela Cousin in our debt coordinator section, and our Deputy Director, Chris Long, and Finance Administrator Adam Robbins for all their work that they put into this effort. This afternoon, I'd like to talk a little bit about the difference between the capital improvement budget and the capital improvement plan, and then give a high-level overview of the entire budget, as my colleagues here today will then give more detailed information regarding their specific budgets. The Capital Improvement Plan, or also known as the CIP, is a 6-year planning document which includes the current year. The CIP for this year is the 2021 to 2026 fiscal years. The Capital Improvement Budget, or known as the CIB, is actually the current year budget within the Capital Improvement Plan. It funds projects for infrastructure such as water and sewer projects, parks, streets, and affordable housing, among others. How is all this paid for? And our financial strength is very important to our capital budget. In 1956, a policy was created to set aside 25% of the income tax to pay for the general fund supported debt service. These funds are deposited in the Special Income Tax Fund, or better known as the SIT, to pay for projects such as streets, health and safety facilities, recreation and park improvements, and affordable housing. Utility fees pay for all infrastructure projects for the utilities, sewer, water, and power. No income tax is used for those projects. The city continues to have a AAA bond rating, and that allows us to have low interest loans and rates on bonds and notes. Nearly 74% of the general obligation debt is paid off in 10 years, and 84% of that is voter approved. We do have a self-imposed fiscal policy that we will not budget more than 1.5 times the amount of budget. So in other words, for every dollar we want to spend, we must bring in $1.50. Since 1956, the city has 101 issues seeking voter approval. 95 have passed, most recently in 2019. That is a 94% approval rating, which is fantastic, and it shows that the community trusts the city leaders to be stewards of their dollars. I'll get into the high level of the total budget and how that breaks down. The budget is a combination of planned projects, new money, and carryover dollars. Carryover dollars include proceeds from any previous bond sales. The total budget, when you include the SIT portion, utilities, and carryover, is $1.26 billion. It breaks down as follows. $513 million is supported by the SIT, $690 million is supported by utility fees, and $57 million is supported by other funds such as internal services and permanent improvement funds. When you look at the budget from just the new money that is being requested, that total amount, when you take in consideration all funds, is $766 million. $302.5 million is supported by the SIT. $458.4 million is supported by the Department of Public Utilities. Of that amount, 73%, or $335 million, will be funded through low interest loans from the state of Ohio, and $5.1 million will be supported by those other funding sources. The capital budget provides job creation and enhance our neighborhoods. The 2021 capital budget includes funding for projects that include affordable housing as part of the voted $50 million bond package, pools and park improvements, a forestry plan, the design of a new firehouse number 36, and a new police substation in the Hilltop, the design of a real-time crime center and 911 dispatching facility, neighborhood safety cameras, improvement to infrastructure in our neighborhoods such as sidewalks, paving, and utilities, and miscellaneous renovations such as the women's locker room at the Fire Training Academy. Other investments with our community partners such as the Adam H. Crisis Center. The next steps is that council will consider legislation on November 4th. and upon passage of the budget, the Department of Finance and Management will work with the city auditor's office to size up the amount of the bond sale and bond pricing dates. Thank you again, President Pro Tem Brown. That concludes the overview of the mayor's 2021 capital budget at the high level. If it is okay, I would like to then now provide an overview of the Department of Finance and Management budget.
We will pause briefly.
I'm
sorry, Director, I would love for you to detail your department's budget. I just want to pause briefly to see if there were any questions on the overview portion, to acknowledge Councilmember Dorrance and Council President Harden, who are with us here. So brief pause for any questions, and seeing none, Director, please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. The Department of Finance and Management's total budget is $74.9 million. Of that dollar figure, new money is $50.9 million. Some of the priority projects within the Department of Finance and Management include $8.1 million to invest in facility renovations and repairs, $2 million for the North Market building improvements. This is the market itself and not the development that has been publicized in the media, and that is ongoing. $9 million for renovations of 2 floors at the Columbus Public Health Facility. This is to provide additional workspace for staff and services that we provide to our residents. And $17.6 million for the design of the new municipal court building. Those are the highlights of the Department of Finance and Management. That concludes my briefing for my department. To view the entire budget, please visit www.columbus.gov/capital. I will be happy to answer any questions council members may have. Thank you again for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Director. Thank you again to your team for their hard work. Again, columbus.gov/capital to get a closer look at all that the Director just detailed and what you'll hear from additional department staff in our presentations. Any questions from here? Yes, Councilmember Faber.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown, and good afternoon, Director Lombardi. You acknowledged a budget line item for the proposed courthouse. Can you go into greater detail about what that funding will entail?
Councilmember Faber, you broke up a little bit. I think I heard you say the line item for affordable housing. Oh, the courthouse. Sure. Yeah. So the 17 million will be for the design of the new courthouse. Currently, we are under contract to review the land to ensure that the land is doesn't have any environmental issues. We're doing some soil borings. We're doing some surveying, and we hope to put out a design bid contract by the end of this year. And this money will go toward that design of that contract. Or the design of that building. We are working with the clerk of courts. We are also working with the judges, and the prosecutor's office will be involved in that design element of this project.
A minor financial undertaking for the city. Can you give us an idea when we would expect to see actual construction groundbreaking for the courthouse?
Sure, Councilmember Faber. Typically, design will take anywhere between 12 to 18 months, but we think the complexity of this project may go into 18 to 24. We're going to try to make sure that we do not go beyond that 2-year time frame. We like to keep it within that 18-month time frame so that we can begin construction somewhere in the neighborhood of either late or mid 2023 or the fall of 2023 is what our goal is. It is all will depend upon how quickly we can get everybody's approval on the design elements of this facility.
And it may be too early to truly provide the best guesstimate, but do we have an idea what the total cost of construction could potentially be?
Sure. The initial estimate about 2 years ago was $150 million. Typically, it's 10% to design. So at 17.9 million, one would expect that to be somewhere in the neighborhood of between 150 and $175 million. We'll have a better indication of the total cost of construction as we start to get further and further into the design. We will keep council updated on those figures as we get them in and have a little bit more confidence in those numbers.
Thank you, Director Lombardi.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from colleagues? Council Member or Council President Harden.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Director. Probably will have this type of question for all of our presenters from the department. Just as we passed our implementation portion of the disparity study, can you talk about how that will inform the work that we will do through the implementation of the CIB and how the department's working with ODI to make sure that the diversity spend is appropriate to what the disparity study pointed out recently?
Sure, President Harden. We are working, my department's working very closely with the Department of ODI to begin the process of procedures that the departments will be working with to ensure that projects, especially our construction projects, to be inclusive, to be open and opportunities for small, emerging, and minority businesses. We are also considering a different delivery method for construction that is under consideration that we believe will help generate additional opportunities and additional participation in those projects. But our departments have been working very closely with ODI and with our department to begin the structure of procedural matters that will allow those projects to be more inclusive. I think that's the best word I can use, more inclusive to our minority, small, and emerging businesses as we move forward down this path of doing these projects.
All right. Thank you, Director. Moving along to the Department of Public Safety, we are joined by Deputy Director Dan Giangardella.
Thank you. Thank you, President Pro Tem, members of council. On behalf of Safety Director Robert Clark, thank you for allowing me to present to you information regarding the Public Safety 2021 capital budget. The capital budget proposes approximately $33.75 million in new funding for public safety. It's focused on the mayor's priority of protecting Columbus neighborhoods by designing new police and fire facilities, including a real-time crime center and a 911 emergency call center, designing a new police substation and a fire station, implementing additional neighborhood safety cameras, purchasing new fire apparatus, replacing police and fire radios, and renovations at the Fire Academy, the Joint Administration Building, and various facility improvements. The budget allocates $5.75 million for the renovation of current space at 1185 East Broad Street. This is to house the Police Internal Affairs and Fire Professional Standards Office. This Broad Street property is a two-story city-owned facility with approximately 13,000 square feet of office space. Work on renovating the building started earlier this year with a capital fund certification. It is expected to be completed by March of 2022. Both the Police Internal Affairs and Fire Professional Standards will move from the current lease space on Long Street. The Finance Director mentioned Real-Time Crime Center, as well as our 911 Emergency Call Center. There's a total of $10 million available for the design of the Crime Center and the 911 Emergency Call Center. $7 million is in new funds, which will be allocated in 2021 capital budget, combined with $3 million in existing capital funds for design of these facilities. The Public Safety Department is presently assessing locations for both of these facilities. A real-time crime center would integrate and centralize technology and intelligence, improve officer responsiveness, as well as provide officers with up-to-date information before arriving on scene, which will increase officer safety. It will also improve interoperability with other local law enforcement. The 911 emergency call center is often the first point of contact for people in need. The current facility has been in use for approximately 30 years. As Columbus grows in population and geographically, a larger modern facility is needed so that public safety can continue to support the police and fire services. With respect to the Hilltop Substation, the capital budget proposes $5 million for land acquisition and design of a new police substation. The current facility is located at 2070 Hudson Avenue. It's otherwise known as Precinct 19. The substation is old, small, it lacks areas for community to engage with police. The City of Columbus is actually seeking property in the Hilltop area and hopes to begin design of a new substation as soon as possible once the land has been acquired. There's also funds, approximately $2 million in the capital budget for design of new fire station. The city presently has land in the far northeast for the construction of a new fire station. This money would be used for design of that. Typically, each year, we are fortunate to get about $6 million funded for fire apparatus. This is consistent and substantial funding that results in more reliable new emergency response equipment on the street, ensuring optimum response times for the public. With this new funding, the fire division will procure 5 engines, 1 tiller ladder, and 6 EMS transport vehicles. Along with that, appropriate extraction tools, electronics, and communication equipment that are necessary to operate this apparatus. Capital budget also proposes $1 million to install additional neighborhood safety cameras. The city's neighborhood safety camera program began in May 2011 with the installation of 111 cameras in 5 Columbus neighborhoods, Hilltop, Mount Vernon, South Linden, Wyland Park, and along East Livingston Avenue. This initial investment was $2 million. This system was periodically expanded over the last decade, so now there are 248 cameras in the original neighborhoods, as well as additional cameras were placed in North Linden, downtown, Franklinton, and the Far East. This $1 million investment would permit approximately 30 to 40 additional camera locations depending upon available connective infrastructure and technology. Department of Public Safety has approximately 80 additional locations that have been identified either by police or neighborhood groups as potential future camera sites. There is also $2 million proposed in the capital budget for 800 megahertz radio replacements. All fire apparatus are equipped with multiple mobile radios. Each police officer is equipped with a 800 megahertz radio. Likewise, nearly all public safety vehicles are equipped with a radio. This proposal will allow us to replace approximately 400 of those radios that have reached the end of their useful life. There is also proposed $3 million in new funds for general renovations and improvements to police and fire stations. Fire division has 34 stations. Police has nearly 20 precinct facilities, as well as numerous academy buildings that need general improvements, such as pavement restorations, generator and HVAC upgrades, roof and window replacements, security and life safety upgrades, and other general improvements. Currently, some current projects underway include elevator replacements, fire bay extensions, HVAC, and generator replacements. In addition, there is another $2 million in capital funds proposed for the Fire Training Academy to renovate the women's locker room and restroom facilities, as well as repair the parking lot and address other facility issues related to the Fire Academy. Lastly, Public Safety has $1.5 million in capital carryover funds for additional server storage related to the body-worn camera program. The department is currently working towards the replacement of the current police body-worn cameras with new updated models. Many of the current body-worn cameras went into service approximately 5 years ago. Due to the number and length of time that video must be held, these funds will permit the procurement of additional computer storage units and allow public safety to store more camera video. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you listening to our comments. I'd be happy to address any questions that you may have.
Any questions from my colleagues? Councilmember Dorrance.
Deputy Director, can you speak more to the replacement schedule for those body cams? Obviously, I'm the chair of the technology committee, and you mentioned the requirements of having to store that data. The way that the infrastructure is currently set up is not meeting sort of the needs of the city at this point compared to when that program was originally rolled out. Obviously, you don't flip a switch and swap out hundreds of cameras all at the same time. So I'm just curious, what as we fund this acquisition, what is sort of the plan behind, getting these on the streets and making sure that the infrastructure is in place to make sure that those kinds of, the cameras do what we want them to do?
Yeah, I think there's really two reasons why we are looking to replace the body-worn cameras. First, the technology has changed a lot. I think when we first went out, we were one of the first large cities to acquire those in such large numbers, and that technology has evolved in the last 6-7 years very quickly, and so we're looking to replace those. In addition to that, a lot of those cameras are now entering the end of their warranty period. So while I think we've had very good technology, the cameras have worked very well. There's just new and better stuff out there, and it's time for replacement. So those are really the two motivations behind it. The money that I spoke of a minute ago is for the back storage, if you will, for storing videos. Obviously, we've stored a lot more, I think, than we anticipated, and we're in good shape right now. But obviously, as this continues to grow, as we store more video, we will need the hardware equipment to do that. So that's really the motivation there. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to ask a follow-up question on the cameras you mentioned as well. I think you said that the locations precisely will be sort of evaluated based upon feedback from the Division of Police, feedback from members of the community. Can you talk a little bit about that process of rolling out of where those cameras will be located based upon sort of the calculation of the department, with those two groups saying, hey, it makes sense to have a camera here, camera there. Again, also based upon whether or not there's city fiber infrastructure in order to be able to actually get that video to where it needs to be.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Dorns, members of council. So again, yes, $1 million for neighborhood safety cameras. Again, we have about 80 locations that our police commanders, our different zones have identified that potentially could be viable locations. We've also have fielded numerous phone calls through the director's office over the years, and we tend to obviously write those down and go out and research and see if those are areas we can actually put cameras in. Quite honestly, probably the additional cameras that have been placed in since the original installation 10 years ago, mostly have been driven by our neighborhoods. So what we have to do, and I think you touched on this a little bit in your question, is we have to assess those sites. Do we have fiber? Do we have good connectivity? Are we able to feed that video back clearly to either a substation or a place where we can pick up the video? Is there infrastructure that is blocking camera views? Not every area is good for a camera. There could be landscaping in the way. We need power. We need electric power to power these. So there are some infrastructure things that occasionally, not often, but occasionally will limit our ability to place cameras in certain areas. So again, before we go out, we assess all that. We look, where does police want it? Where do neighborhood groups want it? I know occasionally in the past, when we first installed this system 10 years ago, we actually sought letters from neighborhood associations that wanted those cameras. And now, obviously we have a pretty good dialogue with individuals in communities and some of the community leaders that want them. So as I said, we have a list built up of those. These funds will probably get us, as I said, somewhere between 30 and 40 locations. The technology has improved tremendously. In the past, we were able to put 3 cameras sort of in a location. In other words, each camera actually had 3 separate cameras, diagonal cameras. Now I think we're up to 4, but with an additional pan tilt zoom. They're much smaller. So although we've never made any attempt to hide where these cameras are. In fact, if you've seen some of the original ones, they're it's very obvious where they are. We have, I think in some cases we even have a big police decal on them. So we'll go through the process of assessing the best locations and we'll go from there. So I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
You did, thank you. And then just one more question on the follow-up. So are these 30 to 40 new cameras, or is this replacing any of the existing ones? Again, talking about the program having been in place for 10 years, better technology, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just curious if there's, we're adding 30 to 40, whether or not replacing some
Yeah.
old technology or whether these are all new locations.
Yes, Councilmember Dorans, members of council. Ironically, this has been a really robust system. I don't think we anticipated a 10-year life on a lot of these cameras, but so to answer your question directly, these would be new locations. We have had to replace very few of the existing cameras. I think one or two where they were on a pole, that pole was hit by a vehicle, but other than that, we have had really, this has been robust equipment, and we too have been a little surprised that it has lasted that long. So these would be new locations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Favor.
Thank you, Chair Brown. I'm wondering, there's some pretty large purchases in here when we talk about purchasing a new ladder for the fire department, a new fire truck. What's the life expectancy of these large equipment items that we're purchasing this year?
Yes, Councilmember Favor, members of council, yes, a new ladder truck costs us upwards of $1.6, $1.7 million per vehicle. Engines are approaching $750,000. A medic are probably, when they're outfitted, about $300,000. So you're right; these are very expensive piece of equipment. For ladders and engines, we tend to get about 10 years of what we call frontline service, meaning before they go into reserve status. Reserve status means they're a backup vehicle in case something goes down. We get about 5 years of maybe backup service depending on the wear and tear. So a ladder, hopefully we like to get 15 years. An engine, 10 to 12. A medic, maybe 3 years frontline, and then maybe 5 or 6 total, another 2 or 3 years. The medics, obviously, as 80% of or more of what we do are EMS vehicle runs, and so they tend to get a lot of wear and tear. But if we get 3 years frontline service out of them, we're doing pretty good. Thank you.
And what do we do at the end of those that time in which we have those large items in our possession?
So at the end of life, typically those vehicles will be auctioned off through fleet management for online auction. And if I recall, we get a pretty decent market for those. Obviously, those vehicles are stripped down, but I'm pretty certain we auction those off on a periodic basis through fleet management.
And then that goes back obviously into the city's coffers and helps us to continue to provide essential city services.
Yes, that's correct. Typically, those funds, Director Lombardi can confirm for me, we usually put those, I believe, in our General Permanent Improvement Fund, or sometimes known as GPIF Fund. And you're right, we're able to turn those around and use those to procure, do other renovations and procure other assets.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Deputy Director Dan Giangardella. Seeing no further questions for public safety, we will move to the Public Utilities Department, and we're joined by Assistant Director John Lee. Mr. Lee?
Good afternoon, President Pro Tem Brown and members of City Council. Thank you for the opportunity to present an overview of the Department of Public Utilities 2021 capital improvement budget. Our total capital improvement budget totals $693 million in total funding, with $458 million in new funding and $234 million in carryover. Of this amount, 61% goes to sewer line work and sewer treatment plant upgrades, about 30% for water treatment and water line improvements, 5.5% for storm, and about 3.5% for power and streetlight projects. I will briefly highlight some of our major projects in 2021 and some important neighborhood improvements that we plan to make. On the sewer side, we have a large sewer extension project up in the rapidly developing area between Hoover Reservoir and the village of New Albany. That's an $89 million project. Our Blueprint Columbus program, very much in the neighborhoods here in the city of Columbus. We're continuing that. We have $115 million targeted to address our consent order requirements. We're continuing our work in Linden, Hilltop, Miller Kelton, the 5th by Northwest area. With those projects, we'll be lining sewer laterals. We'll be installing green infrastructure, new sump pumps in resident basements, and roof and downspout redirection projects will all be underway. We have an important green project also. It's $29 million targeted for a cogeneration facility at our Jackson Pike wastewater treatment plant. At the JP plant, we currently produce a large amount of biogas that was previously burned in flares as a waste product, and we're using this gas now to create electricity and heat. And the result will be reduced greenhouse gas emissions. We're estimating this could take, is the equivalent of about 2,800 cars, take those off the road, and it will reduce our electricity consumption at the plant by more than half. Some neighborhood concerns through area commission representatives and the sewer side primarily focus on flooding through combined sewers and rain garden appearances. And we have some dollars in the CIP to remedy some of these issues. On the blueprint side, to improve the aesthetics of our rain gardens, we've developed an ongoing maintenance contract that will allow us to refresh the plantings in those rain gardens and clean the debris and refresh and add soils and mulches. There was some concern about flooding on 5th Avenue, and we have a remedy for that through our 3rd Avenue relief sewer project. This project will be bid in 2021 with construction in 2022. Some drainage problems were reported along Moeller Street in the Millbrook neighborhood, and we have a project called the Moeller Street Intercepting Sewer Project with $18 million in the CIB that will help target those problems with construction starting in 2022. On the water side, we have several important projects. One is our continued efforts with our automatic meter reading program. We have $22 million targeted for that project in 2021. Over the next 4 years, we'll be installing new water meters in homes and businesses. Once those are installed, we can read those remotely, and customers will have better access to consumption and billing information. We'll also be able to transition over to monthly billing. Other neighborhood water projects include our water line replacement program. We have $57 million targeted there in many community planning areas, including the Far South area, Mid-East, Hilltop, and North Linden. We have many projects under construction right now in 2021 in Franklinton, Old Beachwald, along Dublin Road, Olentangy River Road, Woodland Avenue, Mock Road, and Chestershire Road. As well, we have $104 million in improvements planned for our water plants. Maintaining those and the treatment processes are important. We have dollars for intake upgrades, concrete repairs, clarifier upgrades. Some of our laboratories are getting upgraded, and several HVAC and pump replacement projects. On the storm side, neighborhood concerns from area commissions were storm sewer backups, improving overall drainage, removing debris to help the storm flow, and eliminating standing water. We have several dollars in the CIB for remedies there. In the North Linden area, there was some concern about flooding in their neighborhoods after storms. In the CIB, we've got $1.2 million budgeted to help with this problem. We plan to bid this project later this year with construction underway in 2022. The 21 CIB also includes dollars for storm sewer improvements in the Old Beachwald area along Holt Avenue, Summersworth Drive, that's in the North Central area, near Kenny and Henderson, and in the Leonard Farms Bolton Field area in Westland. All these projects are under construction now and expected to be completed in 2022. We also have $5 million in storm improvements in the Franklinton area that experiences some street flooding from time to time, and we have $8 million in the Mid-East community area that will improve drainage near East Livingston and South Hamilton. Both of those projects are under design. And finally, for our division of power, street lights are always of interest to area residents to improve aesthetics and safety. We also receive complaints of various down street lights or malfunctioning or too dim type of street lights. So we address several of these in the CIB as well. Right now in the 2021 plan, we've got streetlights improvements ongoing at Cleveland Avenue and East Main Street. Both of these are new decorative lights that are being installed. and we have streetlights along Hall Road and South High. All these projects are under construction now and expected to be completed in 2022 at the latest. And finally, another big program for the Division of Power is our smart street lighting program. We've got $13.4 million in the CIB for this, where we plan to convert our existing street light system over time to a smart light system with removing the high pressure sodium bulbs and installing LED lights there. In 2021, we've entered into a construction contract for the first phase of this project to replace about 2,500 high pressure sodium lights with LED lights in the Linden neighborhood. For phase 2, we'll plan to replace several high pressure sodium lights with LEDs along Livingston Avenue. There's been several reports of it being too dim in that area. And then future phases of the smart street lighting program will continue as funding becomes available. I did want to address President Hardin's topic of how we're working with ODI and how we plan to work with them in 2022 with the disparity study recommendations. We're working closely right now on identifying a lot of goals for some of our major projects, in particular our fourth water plant, how we can gather teams and work with contractors on the design side. That's a very large project. There's a lot of design components there, so we're working with ODI closely on that. Also looking at some of our large projects that we have, how we can unbundle those and offer various types of trades. We have plumbing, we have a facility project, we have plumbing and electrical HVAC. How can we break those out of the larger project? And we're also offering several small facility projects through our small capital program under $1 million. So with that, President Pro Tem Brown and members of City Council, thank you for your time, and this concludes my comments on the 2021 CIB. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Assistant Director Lee. And I will just emphasize for those watching what Director Lombardi's comments referenced in the beginning, which is that a majority, really close to 60% of our budget is public utility spending. That is debt backed by, that part of the budget is backed by enterprise debt. And there are a lot of really important utility projects that happen every single year. Some we can see, like streetlights, and some we cannot see, but desperately need, like sewers. So I appreciate the extensive overview, and I will pause to see if my colleagues have any questions for Assistant Director Lee. All right, thank you so much. We will move to public service now, and we are joined by Assistant Director Steve Wenzel. Mr. Wenzel?
Thank you, President Pro Tem Brown, President Harden, members of council. Thanks for this opportunity to speak briefly about the Department of Public Services proposed 2021 capital improvements budget. The Department of Public Service proposed capital improvements budget for 2021 is $21.5 million this year, which is made up of $88.6 million in new funding and $132.9 million in carryover funding that will invest in roadways, sidewalks, bikeways, bridges, and other projects that will improve the quality of life in our neighborhoods. As in years past, the centerpiece of Public Services proposed capital budget is $34.4 million for the city's resurfacing program, which is made up of $21.1 million in new funding and $13.2 million in carryover funding. Of that $34.4 million, $22.2 million will go towards resurfacing of roadways across city neighborhoods. So this work consists of milling the existing pavement, overlaying with new asphalt. We do some minor curb repairs. We install 88 wheelchair curb ramps and some full depth pavement repair where needed. Typically during a year, the department will bid out what we call different packages or different projects as it relates to our resurfacing program. So this year we have it broken down into two major resurfacing projects. Resurfacing project one or program one, we're estimating around $11.6 million this year, and we plan on resurfacing 64 streets and constructing 157 ADA curb ramps along those streets, including such roads as Champion Avenue from Marion to Phoebus. This is on the south side. Walnut Creek Drive from Sweet Day Street to Westerville Road. This is in the North Linden neighborhood. And Deer Park Lane from Alta View to Sankis on the far north side. So our resurfacing project due our package 2 this year, we're estimating at $10.6 million. This contract includes repairing, resurfacing 84 city streets and constructing 433 ADA curb ramps along those streets. And will include such streets as Fairwood Avenue from Main Street to Franklin Park. This is on the near east side. John Glenn Avenue from Shook Road to Alum Creek Drive. This is on the far south side. West Park Avenue from Sullivan to Broad in the Franklinton neighborhood. And Parkwick Drive from Georgesville to Village Park in the Hilltop neighborhood. Also included in the $34.4 million resurfacing program is $3.1 million for urban paving projects, which are joint projects between the city and the Ohio Department of Transportation, where ODOT will provide 80% of the funding, and the city will kick in a 20% match. And these are typically streets that overlap both of our jurisdictions. And the city will also pay for specialized items if we want additional ADA curb ramps, or if there's additional street repairs that need to happen other than just resurfacing. We'll kick in that at about 100%, but typically it's an 80-20 split for when we're just resurfacing a road. Some of the projects we'll be working on there is we're going to resurface Westerville Road or State Route 3. This is going to go from Cleveland Avenue to basically the Columbus Corporation limits, which is Johnny Appleseed Court. We're also going to repave State Route 710. This is Bush Boulevard and Schrock Road. So we're going to resurface Bush Boulevard from 161 to Schrock, and then Schrock from Bush Boulevard to Interstate 71 in the Northland community. Another $1.5 million of the resurfacing program will be used for what we call our crack seal and slurry seal program. In this program, it's 189 streets citywide that we're going to put either crack sealant or slurry sealant products in the roadway. And what this does is help us maintain those streets in between the different times that they are resurfaced throughout the life of the street. Also included in the proposed 2021 capital improvement budget are other high-level investments that are being made in our community and in our neighborhoods, such as right-of-way acquisition and utility relocation dollars for the State Route 161 from I-71 to Cleveland Avenue project. This is up in our Northland community. We have budgeted roughly around $700,000 for the right-of-way acquisition and utilities. And this project is going to leverage another $1 million that's going to be provided by MORPC when we move into the construction phase. And it will include additional ped and bike facilities, new traffic signals, pavement widening. We're going to resurface and put in raised medians on the side streets, as well as installation of a few mini roundabouts up in that area. We're also going to make a $12.7 million investment for the construction of the Hudson Avenue project. So this project is completely reconstructing Hudson Avenue from I-70 to Cleveland Avenue. This is in our Linden community. And we're going to make it into a unified thoroughfare, and we'll install new curb, reconstruct and modify the existing medians on the east side leg of the I-70 and Hudson intersection. We're going to put in sidewalks on the north side and a shared use path on the south side. We're going to install new street trees and new traffic signals, as well as new sewers and a 24-inch water main in that area. And we'll also upgrade all the ADA curb ramps at the intersections. Included in this year's capital budget is approximately $3.4 million in new funding for our bridge rehab program. This includes the Parsons Avenue Bridge Wall Project in the amount of $1.2 million. This project consists of rehabbing the existing retaining walls along Parsons Avenue between Hosack and Deering Avenues. Portions of the existing retaining walls will be removed and replaced. We'll replace the sidewalk and reconstruct it along the west side of Parsons Avenue as a part of this project also. We're also going to fund another bridge project. There's a Whittier Street and shared use path widening project. This is $990,000 construction project. So this it's a major bridge rehab of the Whittier Street Bridge, as well as we're going to widen the shared use path from Front Street to the beginning of the shared use path at the Audubon Park on Whittier Street. And we're also going to include any necessary roadway work that is associated with widening the shared use path along that corridor. Another big part of our budget is our Bikeway development program. This year's capital budget includes $2 million for this program. It's going to fund $700,000 worth of design for a shared use path on the west side of Sancus Boulevard. This will run from Worthington Galena Road to Worthington Woods Boulevard. It's also going to fund $400,000 worth of right-of-way, and this is for acquisition associated with the Worthington Woods shared use path that's being installed. So this project it consists of 7,700 feet of shared use path on the southeast side of Worthington Woods Boulevard. And this is going to go from Sancus Boulevard to Park Road, and along the south side of Park Road from Worthington Woods Boulevard to Deer Creek Drive. In addition, we're going to install sidewalk on the north side of Park Road from Worthington Woods to Deer Creek. And we'll also be upgrading curb and gutter, as well as some storm sewer facilities that are going to be installed as a part of the curb addition within that corridor. The city is also making a significant investment in our ped safety program this year. We're going to allocate $6.7 million of our capital program to upgrade some of our ped safety facilities across the city, including $1.5 million that's going to invest in right-of-way and construction of the Maple Canyon Avenue Sidewalk project. This project will install sidewalks along the east side of Maple Canyon Avenue from the Fire Station 6 to Jewett Drive. The sidewalk installation is going to include a combination of curb and uncurbed ditch sections, as well as driveway approaches, curb ramps, and storm sewer. Another $245,000 will fund the city's share of the construction of the Kingsford Road Sidewalk project. This is partially funded through a grant via the State of Ohio's Safe Routes to Schools program, and is primarily going to serve the Eakin Elementary School. The project will construct sidewalks along the west side of Kingsford from Briggs to Eakin Road, and along the north side of Briggs Road from the existing sidewalk to Kingsford Road. We will also use $2.2 million of our sidewalk program to invest in sidewalks around our Celebrate One areas. Celebrate One sidewalk projects in the city's opportunity neighborhoods help to improve pedestrian access for women, infants, children's programs, as well as providing sidewalk connections to some of our coded bus stops that will help us have access to some WIC programs, as well as other health and educational resources that we need. These projects play a key role in improving the health and quality of life in our neighborhoods. And finally, I would like to highlight a couple of the capital priorities that were solicited from the area commissions and the civic associations earlier this year. Included in this budget is $4.3 million in funding for the construction of the Milo Grogan 2nd Avenue Improvements Project. This project will connect Milo Grogan to the Italian Village via an improvements to 2nd Avenue, and this will run from St. Clair to 6th Street. The scope of this project includes new sidewalks, curbs, curb extensions. We're going to put in some bike facilities and decorative lighting, as well as upgrade retaining walls along that whole corridor. Also included in the budget is $213,000 in funding for the design of sidewalks on Barnett Road. This will run from Astor Avenue to Main Street. Eventually, this project will construct continuous sidewalk on Barnett that will run from Livingston to Main Street. I know that was really important in that community. As well as, lastly, the 2021 budget will allocate $415,000 for the design of Courtright Road Sidewalk Project, which was a request from the Mid-East Area Commission, and will design sidewalks on both sides of Courtright Road between Refugee Road and Groves Road. Again, I would like to thank Council for the opportunity to present Public Services proposed 2021 capital improvements budget, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you so much for the overview on the portion of the budget that many of our residents are most excited about. I think council members can agree that we hear capital priorities from residents kind of loudest and most frequently regarding public service priorities. And I know as chair, Councilmember Favor really feels that. Are there any questions for Assistant Director Wenzel? Yes, Councilmember Favor.
Thank you, Chair Brown. If we could, this council has always been, one of the high priorities has always been around ensuring that there are sidewalks for our students that are going to and from school, and became a big advocacy on behalf of Chair Brown and Council President Harden back in 2018 and 2019 to ensure that there were adequate funds available. I'm wondering if we did mention a lot of sidewalk funding that would be included in this budget, but I'm wondering if you could discuss in greater detail the status of the sidewalk school program and what residents can expect in the upcoming years to ensure that their children are safe as they go to and from school.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Favor, President Harden, members of council. Yeah, we've made a lot of significant investments, if you recall, as you were indicating in the last couple of years through the help of council by providing some additional funding to make those links to some of our sidewalks and our schools throughout our communities. I believe 2 years ago, we allocated $2.5 million. And then again, maybe back in 2019, 2020, there was another $2.5 million that was allocated. And we used those funds to design a variety of different sidewalks that were identified when we partnered with Columbus City Schools and identifying opportunities to make that last mile connection from our sidewalk network to those schools. A lot of that $2.5 million original allocation was for design work that was associated with those sidewalks. And the other portion of that allocation of $2.5 million in the following year went to right-of-way acquisition, because you can imagine when we're doing these long stretches of sidewalks, we need to have appropriate right-of-way to do that. And we do have to acquire that right-of-way to make those connections. And we're starting probably within the next, towards the end of this year, into next year, moving into the construction phase for a lot of those projects. We do have some existing money that was carried over, and that was part of our carryover funds that I mentioned earlier, from that second initial $2.5 million that will allow us to do some of that construction work. And I would imagine coming back to council in 2022 for some additional construction dollars so we can complete some of those last mile locations. One of the other things that we do like to partner with the state for the Safe Routes to Schools program, and this concentrates more of our elementary schools and creating those last mile connections for our students. The state allocates roughly $4 million per year for that program, and any one project can receive up to $400,000. So we do look at the opportunity with the state to acquire additional funding so we can move forward on some of the sidewalks that we have programmed that we might not necessarily have funding for yet. So we're making good strides. I would say you were going to start, I think, next year, toward the end of this year, starting to see construction done to make those connections.
Thank you. As Chair of Public Service, if I'm not engaging in conversation about sidewalks, then it's also about resurfacing. And there's, it appears to be a little over $20-ish million set aside for maintenance and resurfacing. So I'm wondering if that is on par with years past, and if not, is that what would that be attributed to? The difference that means. I hope that makes sense. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Favor, President Hard, members of council. So what you'll see in our budget for 2023 is $22.1 million in new funding that we have for our resurfacing program. What we were able to do this year was go back and look at a lot of our old contracts and some of our other resurfacing contracts that might be finishing up this year, early and late this year, and identify opportunities where we could cancel off some funds that were not needed. They were basically set up for contingency. If we got down to a point where we needed additional money to finish that resurfacing program for last year or this year, we set aside some contingency money. So we were able to identify a number of buckets of money that's reflective in our carryover cash in our resurfacing program. So if you take those two items together, our new funding plus our carryover funding, it does keep us pretty much right on par of past years' resurfacing programs that we have funded.
And thank you, that is incredibly helpful. And for residents who are concerned or they have questions about whether or not their street will be included in Project 1 or Project 2, generally when council is presented with legislation to approve these projects, we do provide a list of all the streets that will be included in the projects. But proactively, can a resident find out if their street will be included in Project 1 and Project 2 or Project 2?
Yes, Councilmember Favor. Yes. If a resident wanted to call 311 and put a request in to see where their street was on the list, they can do that, and we will get back with them. Also, like you indicated, Councilmember, as a part of those packages or those programs, we do send out press releases on what streets we'll be doing that year. And I believe we utilize GTC3 too. We kind of put a ticker out there that kind of just runs through all the streets and refreshes on different programming throughout those programs. So yeah, I would, if we can use those resources and call 311, a resident can find out if their street was programmed.
If you could just give a brief update as to where we're at in meeting the goals of Vision Zero with this capital improvement budget this year.
Yes, thank you, Councilmember Favor. So this last year we allocated, I believe, is roughly $2 million for the Vision Zero initiative to kick off that program. I believe this year we're allocating another $2.5 million for that also. And this will start doing some of the education and the outreach, as well as some of the improvements that we're going to try to make to implement some of our initiatives associated with Vision Zero, like slow streets and reducing the accident volumes throughout our neighborhoods with education and any infrastructure improvements we need to make. So we are allocating an additional $2.5 million this year for that initiative.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Councilmember Favor. Are there other questions from my colleagues for the Department of Public Service? Council President Harden.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Not surprisingly, Chair Favor asked a lot of the questions that I was going to ask, but that makes total sense as she is the chair. Just the question that I asked of the Finance Department, and I will have to run shortly for another appointment, but I hope that Director Stevens would also weigh in on his department's engagement with ODI as we move through the implementation of the disparity study as it pertains to the CIB. Just because we're in the first year of the implementation, want to make sure that we are being intentional and thoughtful so that we can meet our new goals and requirements around diversity spend.
Yeah, thank you, President Harden. One of the things that we've done in the Department of Public Service this year, and I believe it was ODI initiated it citywide also, was creating a disparity action plan. So we've been working with them. I believe we recently had shared that with the Department of ODI, and it basically is a blueprint of, and it includes this capital budget, all the different projects that we're going to initiate. And it also is a blueprint on how we're trying to meet those goals that have been established within the disparity study. let alone supplier diversity goals, but also personnel and staffing diversity goals. And it's kind of a roadmap that's going to help us get to that, to the levels that we're seeking through the diversity plan. So with that action plan, I'm partnering with our colleagues at ODI in identifying different projects where we can look at some participation, as well as like Assistant Director Lee said, look at unbundling some different contracts in order to make that more attractive to some of our smaller disadvantaged enterprises. So we're working closely with our colleagues because we think it important with our department, and we want to make sure that we're in a position to do whatever we can to meet the goals that we have.
Director Winslow, that's very impressive, actually, that you guys have a diversity action plan, disparity action plan, and one would love to see that and even be briefed on it. And I'll work with the chair's office to get that set up. But it's the first time I've heard of a department taking that step, and maybe other departments have, but very appreciative. That's the kind of intentional planning that I think that the council is hoping that we're leaning into. So thank you for that.
Thank you, President Harden, and thank you to Assistant Director Wenzel. We will move next to Recreation and Parks. We have with us Craig Murphy, the Capital and Strategic Planning Administrator. Mr. Murphy, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Council President Pro Tem Brown. I am hopefully going to be sharing my screen here with you. Okay, I trust you can see our slideshow here.
We can see it.
Excellent. Okay, well, good afternoon, Council President Pro Tem Brown and members of Council. Thank you for this opportunity to present our 2021 capital budget. I'd like to begin by sharing, what our mission is of our department, because it's at the heart of everything we do and the decisions we make. Our mission is to connect the people of our community through the power of nature, wellness, and creativity. And from the 2021 capital budget, Recreation and Parks will receive $50.7 million in new capital support. This represents about $22.8 million in base funding and then $27.8 million to support unfunded priorities. The department has carryover that we will be advancing of $40.8 million. Much of that has already been encumbered with existing projects from the 21 capital budget. I'm sorry, from the capital budget of 2020. All of this capital funding goes towards supporting, our existing assets, and as well as investing in the growth of our recreation and park system. In 2019, we as a department adopted this new capital model for internally allocating capital dollars. And so this creates a level of discipline for us that we're making sure to be taking care of our existing assets in our system, as well as maintaining the ability to grow our system and serve more people. So I'm going to go through just sort of how we utilize our capital funds when we look at this new budget model. Like I said, half of what we spend our capital on, about 48%, is for the renovation of our existing assets. So that's parks, trails, buildings, facilities, athletic complexes, pools, and that's about $10.9 million in our budget. So examples of that might be equipment, fountain improvements, bridge and culvert improvements. So you get a sense, too, that we have a lot of infrastructure that we have to care for within our park system. We have street trees in there that we're planting, removing, and we do the grinding of whatever leftover there is when trees are removed. We have HVAC improvements, roof and building envelope improvements, energy efficiency upgrades throughout our system, and then hard services such as sports courts and walking paths and parking lots need to be improved. We also utilize our renovation budget to support, to pay for the indoor flooring replacements or improvements. Obviously, annually, we replace playgrounds, and then lots of small and large-scale amenity projects within our park system. So while we spend half of our funding, of our capital funding, on the renovation of our existing portfolio, we also know we need to grow our system to serve more people, to better serve those that, where we have assets, but to also grow. So we dedicate 25% of our funding to support the new development of parks. So that could include greenways and multi-use trails. This has become a really important part for us because we're spending a lot of dollars creating connectivity from neighborhoods to our major trail systems. New park development projects are included in this line item. Blueways development, as well as redesigning existing parks within our portfolio. We spend about 7% of our capital budget, that's $1.6 million, towards acquisition. And this is a focus of ours. In many areas of Columbus are lacking a 10-minute walk to a park or greenway connection. So many of these acquisitions that we do are leveraged with outside grant dollars from either the state or other entities. Since 2009, since we've created this sort of allocation model and the acquisitions specifically, we've acquired over 200 acres of parkland for either conservation and future parkland development. And again, that's leveraged money using other sources to help us pay for those properties. We have a category called small and large projects, and that's about 13% of our budget, represents about $3 million. And it really goes towards the improvement and expansion of our indoor and outdoor rental facilities, our athletic complexes, and many of our sports fields. And then we also have our 8 golf courses. So that allocation supports those items, and anything from window, door replacement, carpet upgrades, whatever we need in those facilities. I'm trying to think of another. Gym dividers is a common one that we've really amped up in the past year, has been utilized out of that source of the budget. And then finally, we have opportunity funds and emergency funds. And this just positions us, this is about 7% of our budget. It's a smaller portion of our budget. But from the time we submit our budget request to finance, and by the time it's funded, a lot can happen. And we want to be able, in a position where we can pivot, adjust quickly to opportunities that come before us, whether it's the ability to acquire something or to improve something. We just want that ability and flexibility, as well as emergency funds. Again, 8 months, 10 months can pass between the budget submission and funding. So we just need to position ourselves to understand that scopes sometimes change in our projects, and so we have that, that contingency in place. What happens, though, is that if opportunities don't arise, or there aren't that many, or we have a limited number of emergencies that we need to pay for, we have 2 or 3 or 4 shovel-ready projects that are ready anytime to go. So there's usually a point in the time in the year where whatever balance of funds is left in those 2 funds, that we advance those projects and greenlight them. So that gives you a sense of sort of how we are spending our capital allocation sort of in broad terms. One of the things that's really important for us is how we're collecting input from the community. Council President Pro Tem Brown, you said there's no better expert than the people that live in the neighborhoods who know what's needed, how it's needed, where it's needed. And so we do the best we can to respond to that. So how we prioritize all of our improvements depends a lot on those variables. It's important that we collect information from multiple sources. As a result, we rely heavily on residents to provide us feedback, and we have these multiple input channels, as we call them, which help us with that collection of information. We also have a database that we've adopted over the past 3 years. It's called Asset Planner, and it helps us sort of do life cycle replacement, proactive work relative to our facilities. So we have dozens, I don't know the exact number, of facilities that are loaded into this database, and annually it's kind of informing us how we need to prioritize those improvements in order to keep ahead of life cycle failures. I just want to highlight just a few of our projects that we had funded this year. We're looking at about $6.4 million in park improvement projects. Specifically, I want to talk about the Glenwood Pool construction of $6 million, and then the Windsor Pool construction of $6 million. Both of those are nearing their completion from a design perspective. I think we'll have those done in November. And then we're looking to break ground on creating these new pools at these locations sometime late summer, so that we can at least get one more summer season out of the existing pools. We received $2.5 million in the Climate Action Plan Comprehensive Energy Management Implementation. The City of Columbus has, I believe, 25 properties that are sort of the worst performing from a energy efficiency perspective. Half of those properties belong to recreation and parks. So this will be a source of funding that will help us sort of jumpstart our work on those 13 properties that will give us the sort of ability to do some front-end automation, create some smart controls, as well as upgrade the HVAC units specifically to those locations, so that we get better performance out of those buildings. We know we're capable of it. We just need the funding to help support it. We've also received $2 million to support the design and engineering of the Community Creative Campus. This is located off Broad Street in East Columbus. This is a facility that will co-locate both the Golden Hobby Shop and the Martin Janus programming in a new facility, as well as opening programming for adults in the neighborhood around art and wellness programming. Finally, the Urban Forestry Master Plan implementation, we adopted the plan this year. This is $1.5 million to help support us in the implementation, and this would help us with staffing as well as planting, equipment purchases, just kind of positioning us for the next phase of growth within the forestry section, and to see the improvements that we all wish to see in our urban canopy. Council President Pro Tem Brown and council members, as you seek information on the capital process from residents, I just wanted to highlight just a few projects we're advancing due to the relationship that you described. We are advancing the master planning process, and that will lead to then the phase 1 design process for the sheep farm, which is West Case Road. We have park development projects located at Alkyle Road, Gender Road, the Glenwood Natural Area, and McCoy Park. Another important aspect of our work is the trail connections and park projects, such as so the Franklinton Loop, which is a really sort of complicated trail project, as well as a park project located in the Franklinton neighborhood. We'll be advancing that this year. The Eastmore Green Line in the Mideast is another very large sort of bike and multi-use path, kind of a linear park as we think of it, in an area that desperately needs parks. And then the Mock Road Greenway project is an effort to create connectivity from Mock Road area over to the Alum Creek Trail. We have we've had a lot of requests around targeted lighting projects. So this year we'll be in a position to support lighting at the Big Run Park, lighting at Far East Parks, Marion Franklin, Scioto Southland, Woodward Park, and Southeast Lyons. We have many shelter improvement projects. One of those will be at Marie Moreland Park this year. We'll be starting Riverside Green as well as Reddick Park. And then a new program I mentioned a little earlier, but it's essentially reimagining our parks. So we'll be taking 3 locations, one from the south side, one from sort of northeast/South Linden area and then southwest, take some existing parks and then sort of reimagine what they can be. Many of them are sort of older parks that just need some new life, breathed into those properties. And so we're excited to get the planning process and involve the community in those projects. Finally, I just want to thank you, Council President Pro Tem Brown and members of council for the opportunities to share what our plans are for advancing the recreation and parks capital budget this year, and I'm open to available for any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Mr. Murphy. That was a wonderful overview, and thank you for the presentation. I have two questions, and I want to give time for Councilmember Faber too, if she has any. First of all, you mentioned the database kept for improvements of parks to kind of try to monitor the life cycle of various equipment and parks. Can you describe a little bit more how the department measures that? And if there is, in addition to the data stored in a database, if there is, how many times department staff may go tour the parks to see how the look, feel, and presence of the parks corresponds with the data?
Council President Pro Tem Brown and members of council, the way that we, let me back up. The asset planner database is one that's focused on facilities. And so it's looking at HVAC systems, building envelope, and so it's more hard, sticks and bricks type evaluation. And but we rely heavily on our operations and maintenance teams who are regularly out in the parks to evaluate conditions of the parks. They're the key partner. When I mentioned the renovation budget, they're the key partner in that budget. In determining what projects are developed, we take the feedback from the community as well as from that from that division to help inform what projects are funded through our capital budget. One of the things that I'm really sort of excited about is working with area commissions on their evaluation of parks, because it may be one thing what we think, and it may be something else what our area commissioners think about and the residents think about the parks. So a good example was last year we took advantage of working with the Southside Area Commission and got a list of their park audit. So that helped inform very targeted both maintenance work that was needed as well as capital improvements that that have been done and are being done as a result of that. We'll be meeting hopefully in the next couple of months with the Greater Hilltop Area Commission to evaluate their park audit so that we can be in communication and in partnership with our parks so that we're making the best decisions and best improvements for the quality of those parks and the people who enjoy those parks.
Thank you very much. Questions from colleagues? And I want to acknowledge Councilmember Remy as well. Hello. Okay, well, we will, thank you for that, Mr. Murphy, and we will move into our final department presentation, which is the Department of Development. And of course, flagging that after Director Stevens concludes, we will move to public testimony. So Director Mike Stevens, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair Brown, members of council. I want to start off by thanking Director Lombardi and his team for their partnership and collaboration as we've worked through this capital budget process. The Development Department uses capital funding to generate wealth by leveraging private investment and increase affordable housing within our neighborhoods and create jobs. Our 2021 capital improvements budget request is $68 million. This includes $35 million for affordable housing and community development initiatives and $33 million for economic development projects. Affordable housing is our highest priority. The goal is to foster housing to foster a housing market where every household with a full-time wage earner can obtain housing and to effectively supplement the market where we cannot achieve that goal. We are investing approximately $35 million in affordable housing and community development initiatives. This investment is made out of $17 million in carryover funds and $18 million in new funding. Community development initiatives include $2 million for our annual housing preservation program. This program is designed to increase the local supply of decent, safe, and sanitary housing and decrease the number of vacant properties in our neighborhoods. In addition, we are creating $250,000 for a home repair program in the Southfield neighborhood. As a note, I'm often asked the difference between our housing preservation funds and our affordable housing funds. Housing preservation funds are for homeowner development and are used to help homeowners make the necessary repairs. Affordable housing funds are invested in the construction of new units to increase the supply of new residential units. The pandemic has increased the demands on our shelter providers. We are budgeting $350,000 as part of our community development initiatives to help with annual repairs to our emergency shelters. Lastly, I'd like to talk about our public-private partnership program, or P3. Through the P3 program, the city makes targeted infrastructure investments that leverage private investment to support the city's economic development efforts. These projects are designed to create new employment centers, revitalize neighborhoods, and spur job creation. The partnership approach of the city has been critical to our continued growth. Over the past 5 years, we have leveraged $28.77 per $1 of city capital investment. Our 2021 capital budget proposal included $33 million. This concludes the 2021 capital budget proposal. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know that President Hardin, before he left, was interested in kind of what our work around and partnership with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. Development 2 has a diversity action plan that we have worked with the Office of Diversity and Inclusion to put together, and we utilize that for not only when we source out our operating budget items, but our capital budget items as well.
Thank you, Director Stevens. You have both your chairs here, so you are going to get questions, starting from Councilmember Favor here.
Thank you, Chair Brown. Director Stevens, thank you for your presentation this afternoon. I don't want to steal too much thunder from some upcoming information that you will discuss later on this week. But if you can speak in greater detail about the $34 million, and if the $50 million that voters approved back in 2019, I believe, that was designated towards affordable housing, are those funds a part of this $34 million? And can we get a general idea of how they may be used in the future and if they've been used at all?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Favor, for that question. What I can share is this year's capital budget request includes funding that would be use some of the bonding authority that was provided by the voters back in 2019 for affordable housing. Last year we had sold approximately about $14 million in affordable housing bond. This year that number is approximately $16 million. We are using those dollars to support gap financing in our 4% low-income tax credit deals that our affordable housing partners are moving forward in the community. What this does is this locks in long-term 30-year affordability for families of 4, making anywhere between $26,000 and $83,000 a year in their income. So we're locking in no more than 30% of their income going towards housing. We're also using some of those dollars to support the housing land trust and some of the homes that are being developed there to provide some of the gap financing there to provide homes. I know we're going to be talking later on this week about the overall plan and using the $50 million of authority and how that's going to translate into new units. But I think this is a good overview of not only last year, but this year and how those dollars from the affordable housing bonds will be spent.
Thank you. And for residents who are listening in and are questioning the logic behind the use, a large portion of the voted bond authority to be used to support gap financing, can you speak just in greater detail about the logic behind that and how that actually does translate to new units in our communities, and how it can be the best use of $50 million. Although $50 million sounds like a lot of money in the realm of construction and development, it's not that much, especially in the world of COVID.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Favor. The logic behind using these dollars is it leverages a significant amount of money that our affordable housing partners are bringing to the table to build new units. One of the challenges we have in the city of Columbus is we just don't have enough units being built across the economic spectrum. And there's been particular pressure on families who are, a family of four making anywhere from $26,000 to $67,000 a year. So by using these dollars to help make the projects, be part of the capital deck of the funding for these projects, it ensures projects get built. I think, to make it real for folks, if we look at the Mulvey Place project that Homeport is doing right off of Cleveland Avenue in Linden, this is affordable senior housing where the city is participating and using some of our bond dollars to provide that gap financing so we can lock in that housing and get new units there. It's a great partnership. It started with NextGen, who acquired the land. Homeport is actually doing the project, and the city's helping provide some of that gap financing. Thank
you. And you mentioned the land trust, which we're excited to hear that the land trust is continuing to provide amazing opportunities for first-time home buyers and folks who are looking to get into home ownership. Do we have an idea how, I think there may have been, I think you mentioned $2 million that might be going towards the land trust. Do we know if those monies will be used to support additional construction of single-family homes?
That's correct, Councilmember Favor. The land trust dollars will go to help with some of the gap financing on those new single-family homes that will be built over the next couple of years, as well as locking in the affordability component for the initial owner and going forward for new owners beyond that.
And for residents who aren't familiar with the land trust, this is one of the tools in the city's toolbox to address the affordable housing crisis, and ensures that the land, therefore the property itself, remains affordable indefinitely being defined by 99 years. But regardless, it does not fluctuate as the market continues to fluctuate in Columbus. So it's one of the efforts that the city has to address the housing crisis. Would that be an accurate statement?
That very well said. Thank you very much.
And my last question, for folks who are, I hear a lot of, and participate in a lot of conversations around affordable housing in general in Columbus. And as we talk about the tools in the city's toolbox, for folks who maybe question whether or not we have a strategy to address our housing crisis, I know that there is a new member, a part of your team. I'm wondering if you could talk about what that role looks like and upcoming strategies that could be conveyed to the residents in Columbus.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Favor. What we have, with yours and council support, we created a new position around housing strategy. It's an assistant director that we filled back in the middle of June. Aaron Prosser has been on the scene now for a couple months, has been engaging with our housing partners in the community, really a learning journey, so to speak, but also starting to develop a framework of how do we take tools like the land trust homes, the affordable housing bond dollars, the abatement policy that we're working on updating, and work that into a strategy that's going to help implement some of the more regional plans that have been put in place, but really about how do we build, how do we preserve, and then how do we advocate for new positions or new policy to continue to keep housing affordable. Really, we're trying to reduce the number by half, the number of residents in Columbus who are paying more than 30% of their income towards housing costs. And that is a key indicator on whether their housing stable or not, is that at 30% income level, 30% of your income going to your housing costs.
Thank you. And Chair Brown, if I may, I know it's a half step off, but as we're talking about ensuring that residents who are homeowners can stay in their home, and the city's efforts to continuing to support the housing preservation efforts, I believe to the tune of $2 million, I would be remiss if we did not at least acknowledge the city's new website that provides guidance and assistance for tenants and landlords who are in need of emergency rental assistance as we continue to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic. So, Director, if you want to, provide additional commentary there, or at least provide the website for residents.
Thank you, Chair Favor. Yeah, we are working closely with our residents who've been impacted by COVID and using some of our rescue plan and CARES dollars to put out emergency rental assistance. The best way to access that is through rentful614.com.
Thank you, Chair Brown, and thank you, Director Stevens.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Favor. Are there any other questions for Director Stevens? All right, thank you, Director Stevens, for your presentation. We will now move into public testimony, starting in the order that everyone signed up. So I will call those in chambers to the podium. You are welcome to leave your mask on or off, depending on your comfort level. And a reminder, there will be a 3-minute limit on remarks so that everyone has time to speak and we have time to gather feedback. And then once we've finished with in-person, then we will pivot to virtual testimony. So we will begin tonight with Ms. Doreen Uhas-Sauer, and Danielle Dillard, you are on deck.
Thank you, President Brown, and good afternoon, Councilmember Favors. My purpose this afternoon, you said tonight, so I say tonight, it just seems long, doesn't it, was really just to assure you that I have provided written testimony that will be available to you and reasons why we have listed 4 priorities for the University Area Commission. But I wanted to reiterate that our list was developed pre-COVID after extensive survey work and extensively looking at possible projects that were outside of urban infrastructure money or other means by which we could get some things accomplished. So we were taking you at your word that it was to be a capital project. And we realized the funds are certainly not limitless and that their priorities are large. But I wanted to assure you that we had reviewed the list earlier this year with the anticipation, quite frankly, that our priorities might have changed during the COVID times. And we found that they really hadn't. They, for the most part, involve 4 varieties of things. Hudson Avenue, which is an interesting node of trying to connect 71 with the rest of Clintonville and the university area through a maze-like series that crosses Indianola and Summit and North 4th Streets and creates great backup. It is also a high pedestrian traffic area, now bike path and cars, and there are growing businesses there. So this had been a constant area that we had been looking at and hoping for some relief on. And again, these are outlined in our proposal. 17th Avenue, which is a short stretch from the fairground into the university area, but is a major gateway, again, for both the city and visitors and university area, is a very long neglected area that we are hoping for some relief on, because quite frankly, other than crocheting slip covers for some of the buildings, it comes down to infrastructure, and it comes down to capital improvements of the streetscape. Tuttle Park is another one that's in Parks and Recreation. We had asked for an improved and expanded Tuttle Park Recreation Center, expansion of the pool. We have drainage issues in all of the short street neighborhoods from Neal Avenue down to the river that stretch along the nature trail from Lane to Doddridge. Part of this is the remnants of an 1840s old North Columbus village. And so in some cases, there is no access down to the trails. There are no curbs. There is no way to differentiate essentially runoff and in both areas. And we are facing a lot of development issues with the proposed large development of 800 beds on Lane Avenue. So we are a very intergenerational community, and college students are part of it, and they are up right against that area. And we are hoping that that is an opportunity for us as a community to share a space and to be extremely cognizant of each other and meet in the way a community should be meeting. You have all of our information. Happy to answer any questions if you want to contact us. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate the engagement of the University Area Commission. You went in depth and you were extensive in your surveys and gathering responses. So we are better advocates for your priorities when that occurs, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, we'll move on to Danielle Dillard, and we will continue to stay in touch with the UAC as well. So Ms. Dillard, if you want to come on up, reminder 3 minutes, and thank you so much for joining us today in council members.
All right, good afternoon. My name is Danielle Dillard, and I'm a resident of Driving Park. I'm also a commissioner on the Livingston Avenue Area Commission. I stand before you today asking the city to include the Livingston Avenue corridor between Ohio Avenue and Nelson Road in the joint Livingston Avenue plan, which aims to improve Livingston between Nelson and James Road. The near south side has been overlooked and ignored for decades. The city has made promises time and time again to assist with cleanup, crime reduction, and development, and we've seen minimal improvement at best. In 2011, the city, in conjunction with our area commissions, adopted a near south side plan. One of the key recommendations of this plan was bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure improvements. The city cited road improvements and enhancements as necessary in order to contribute to a pedestrian-friendly, walkable, and bikeable environment. The city also noted that the streetscape improvements on Livingston from 9th Street east to Ohio should be considered for Livingston between Ohio and Alum Creek. The plan placed an emphasis on building upon the city's bicentennial bikeway plan in order to improve both walkability and bikeability. To date, there are still no bike lanes on Livingston, Newberry, or Phoebus, no bike boulevard on Denton Alley, Costa Street, or Gate Street, and limited bike provisions on residential streets like Champion and Ohio. The intersection at Champion and Livingston was designated as a transportation priority, yet there's been no change. This was all 10 years ago. On October 13th, I attended the second of 3 public workshops detailing the joint Livingston Avenue plan. The city is partnering with Bexley to improve the streetscape on Livingston between Nelson Road and James Road. The project aims to provide a safe and accessible infrastructure, attractive streetscape, and cooperative development and land use policies. I want to ask here today, as I did in that public workshop, why the city is choosing to exclude the Livingston Avenue corridor between Ohio and Nelson. Why create a noticeable gap between the beautiful streetscape around Children's Hospital and what is sure to be a lovely corridor from Nelson to James Road? Why ignore a corridor when the need for street improvement has been documented, acknowledged, and endorsed by this city? Why make Livingston Avenue beautiful in 2 sections and just leave ours blighted? What if a Bexley or Berwick resident wanted to ride a bike or walk to German Village? What would happen when the bike lanes and pedestrian safety plan for their area stop at Nelson Road? I can't safely ride my bike to work because there's no bike safety on Livingston Avenue in my corridor. I want to be clear that I'm absolutely thrilled to see the planned improvements take shape because I travel Livingston Avenue frequently, but it truly feels like a slap in the face that my neighbors and I are excluded. that we, for some unknown reason, are apparently not worthy of a walkable and bikeable corridor. I see Councilmember Harden at my polling place almost every November election, and I'm calling on him today specifically for his support. I want to conclude by reiterating that the Livingston Avenue corridor between Ohio and Nelson Avenue must be included in the joint Livingston Avenue plan, because if not now, when? When will we ever see the improvements that we deserve? My grandmother has been in her home for 50 years. She's the only person who's ever lived there. She and so many of her neighbors deserve to see a beautiful area. So that's what I want to ask for you to do today.
Ms. Dillard, thank you for coming. Thank you for your advocacy on behalf of the neighborhood of your grandmother and other neighbors like your grandmother. I believe you submitted your comments in writing with my office as well, and I appreciate that very much because the details of them are important. We will continue to work with public service on behalf of your neighborhood because that gap should not exist. I will just reiterate that gap should not exist, and we have to work to make sure that no part of Livingston Avenue is left out of that plan. So thank you for the really poignant advocacy to that effect. I see that my colleague, Councilmember Remy, had something to add, and I also want to bring the department into the discussion here in a moment.
Thank you very much, Council President Pro Tem. Commissioner, I hear your pain and appreciate your passion. This is something that I've been advocating for now, most recently, to assist in trying to get some assistance in that area. The NCR program, I'm encouraged with the $2.5 million commitment, and want to see some of that funds being utilized along Livingston Avenue. And we know that the process needs work, and we've got to work on that, and that's my commitment to push forward on that. I did have the opportunity to bring this up to the mayor specifically in my monthly call with him, and point out the fact that this is an area that's been long neglected and had no real investment for quite some time. And so we're going to continue to push. Had a meeting with the library, and they're going to make a significant investment at the library over there in Driving Park, and so we're going to hopefully fill that gap as well, as you mentioned, between Nelson all the way through the corridor. So keep up the advocacy. I do appreciate it. People need to hear this, and certainly know that you have an ally with me on council.
Thank you.
Ms. Dillard, thank you. You will continue to get follow-up from City Council. I want to give Assistant Director Wenzel the opportunity to provide any insights from the Department of Public Service, if there are any updates at this time, and if there aren't, we will continue to stay in touch with the department, Mr. Wenzel, to get updates to Ms. Dillard and the Commission.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Brown, members of council. Yes, this is a project, and it's a corridor that's on the radar for us. We know that there is that gap, and we want, as a department and as a city, of course, to evaluate that and look at opportunities where we can establish funding to move that project forward. I believe we are having discussions about the 2021, maybe even a little bit into the 2022 budget to allocate some funding to update that plan and to include that corridor as a part of that.
Next in chambers, we have Mr. Roy Wenzel. And Mr. James White, you are on deck. And then Ms. Melissa Tompkins, you will be after Mr. White.
Well, thank you very much. My name is Roy Wenzel. I represent the Northwest Civic Association, and also I've been known as the voice of the historic sheep farm on West Case Road. The good news is I'm not going to stick a PowerPoint presentation about the sheep farm in front of your face since you have purchased that property and it's going to become a city park. So we're very happy about that. So what I wanted to do here today was just reiterate some projects that we had submitted to council in April of this year at the bequest of our wonderful neighborhood liaison, Rebecca Deeds. And part of that was, of course, the sheep farm. And I know that efforts are being made right now, and over 700, I think, surveys have been sent in from the public regarding what we'd like to see at that park. So I won't belabor that point. But talking about and my distant cousin, Steve, I didn't know his position, but I'll probably be looking you up, Steve. Repaving streets in northwest Columbus is very important, and sidewalks. West Case Road is a major concern to us. It's going to see more traffic as the park is developed there, and we even spoke to Captain Rubinski at the fire department on West Case Road, and he said his vehicles have difficulty even getting down West Case Road because of potholes, and it's a 2-lane highway with a speed limit of 45 miles an hour, which is too much. And there's ditches on each side, and it's a safety issue just for the fire department alone to get down that road. Now, there has been some patchwork done recently on that, but I think the widening of the road and as the park gets developed, a turn lane would be necessary to get into that park. So I hope that'll be taken under consideration. Also, we talked about sidewalks on Old Henderson Road, Reed Road. And Reed Road, I think, Reed between Bethel and Henderson was scheduled to be done in 2019. And I think some issues came up with the sewers and so forth near the Burgess and Nypo property, which I'll bring up more about that in a second. But I think that was put on hold, and I'm hoping that that comes back, because a lot of people walk from Marks over on Henderson Road and walk down Reed, and there's no place for them to walk. They're walking in yards and so forth. But other sidewalks that we had mentioned in our April discussion was Go Down Road, Olentanzy River Road, Linworth, Case, Abbey Church Road between Sawmill and Essington Drive, which is west of Sawmill, directly down from the sheep farm, and believe it or not, on my street, Francisco Road. It used to be a nice country lane maybe 30 years ago, but now it's a cut through between Kenny to Reed, and people fly down that road, and it's not safe or walkable at all. So we're very concerned about that. Another issue that came up was on Bethel Road at Portland Street. There's a bus stop on the south side of Bethel, but there's no crosswalk there, so people are running across the street. Last but not least, I wanted to mention the Burgess and Nypo building. We would love to see the city purchase that building. Northcrest Park abuts that property, and there's, I think it's 8.8 acres. We'd love to see a Reeb-like center put in at Burgess and Nypo at that property. A lot of services we don't have in Northwest Columbus are needed, and the things that are offered at the Reeb Center are just fabulous, and I think the citizens in Northwest Columbus would appreciate that. So
Thank you, Mr.
Thanks for your
Wenzel.
time. Awesome to see all of you.
Yes.
Thanks, James. Thanks for the staff for making this all happen, actually.
Thank you very much. And we will rely on your distant cousin to help us get back to you on the specific sidewalk requests. And sidewalks are in high demand for each capital budget that we consider. So thank you for additionally putting those on our radar, and we will follow up.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. James White, you are next. And then Melissa Tompkins, I think you're with us virtually. You will be after Mr. White.
Hello, my name is James White. I'm Greater Hilltop Area Commissioner and Hilltop resident since 2018. I want to say thank you to all those who worked so hard to get the mentioned projects that you guys spoke about today to where they are. I also want to also want to thank everyone who's been helping with those as well. As you review these capital improvements for the Hilltop, I ask that you continue to pick up this and read it. It outlines a very strategic and straightforward path to reinvesting in the Hilltop and actually getting these projects done. The city spent a lot of money on this plan, and the community spent a lot of hours and hard work getting this to come for fruition. There's a lot of investment that still needs to be done. We just ask that you keep up the momentum with these projects that are being submitted now and in the future, that you continue to push and invest in the Hilltop. We still have a long way to go, and like I said, I want you to keep this momentum in rebuilding our community. This book holds a lot of great information on how to restore the lost equity in the Hilltop. Please don't let all this hard work from this plan fall like the other ones where they're just collecting dust on a shelf. One more thing before I go. As you continue to see a lot of requests from the Hilltop, from area commissioners such as myself, that you don't see it as a overreach on our end. We're just asking for our community to be built up to the same quality and standards as those around us. We're just seeking an actual investment from the city back into our community, and we appreciate everyone's hard work to actually see that come to fruition. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. We really appreciate your advocacy, and I want to assure you that we never see advocacy as an overreach. It is up to residents. It is their role to advocate for where they live and their neighborhood. It is up to the city to understand and catalog all those requests and really respond and make funding decisions in an equitable fashion based on those requests from various neighborhoods who've had various investment or disinvestment over the years. So we appreciate your advocacy, and you can continue to advocate as much as you want and need to. And we will turn next to our final public testimony. If she is on virtually, Miss Melissa Tompkins, Vice Chair of the Milo Grogan Area Commission.
Thank you, President Pro Tem Brown and Council, for allowing me to speak today on behalf of the Milo Grogan community. Let me first thank you for the capital improvements we've seen in the community that gave us better streets and wheelchair accessible sidewalks. The majority of our capital improvement requests are centered around safety. We are requesting a 2nd Avenue speed reduction. We've had children hit by vehicles coming and going to the Milo Grogan Recreation Center. And unlike 5th Avenue, when drivers would encounter traffic lights on 2nd Avenue, from 2nd Avenue to St. Clair, from St. Clair to Cleveland, there is no speed control. What we're finding is that drivers often exceed 45, even in that 35 mile per hour zone. Along with that, the speed, we would like to have some crosswalk markings outside of the major intersections, which have the traffic lights. There's no crosswalk markings, not even near the Milo Grogan Recreation Center or the G. Tyree School, which serves 3 to 5 year old children. We have identified areas where we feel 4-way stops would help with safety. Speed bumps have been requested by neighbors, and speed monitoring devices on 5th and 2nd Avenue, similar to that's on Cleveland Avenue. Additional lighting is needed on our alleys, and we could really use some lighting at the New Beginnings Park. The New Beginnings Park takes up roughly a block, and the only lighting is the street lighting around in that area. So at night, it's kind of pitch black, and so neighbors have voiced concerns about how dark it is in that area. There are a couple of streets that need widening so residents can park safely on both sides of the street without fear of having their vehicle struck. We were looking to have also the shot spotters and cameras for dumping installed in our community as well as some of the other communities. And lastly, the north side of 5th Avenue, the trash container conversions are still needed. They have the large containers still, and oftentimes because of the excessive brush that's in the alleys, even the large containers are not being emptied. And so that side of Milo Grogan, the north side of Fifth Avenue, is really still in need of the conversion. I would like to comment on Assistant Director Steve Wenzel's comment on the Second Avenue project in regards to connecting Milo Grogan to Italian Village. There were concerns mentioned by the Milo Grogan Area Commission years ago with this project and making sure Milo Grogan doesn't lose this character or identity in having this project done. The last update to the Area Commission was in the early planning phase, and I would like to see a follow-up with the Milo Grogan Area Commission to ensure the voices of the residents in Milo Grogan are heard with their concerns for the effects this will have on our community. Unless council has any questions for me, that's the end of my testimony. I thank you again for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Tompkins. Assistant Director Wenzel, I would request that a member of the Public Service Department who could speak on the project attend the next area commission possible to talk about that with the residents and make sure there's good communication on those planned improvements. Is that possible?
Yeah, thank you, President Pro Tem Brown. Yes, I will look into who the project manager is on that project and make sure that they are included with any additional discussions with that project moving forward. I don't believe there has been significant changes in the plan as it was presented before, but we will definitely do those updates.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Tompkins, thank you for your testimony, for pointing out the need for additional communication about Second Avenue. And then also thank you to you and Chair Tompkins for your presence and assistance in the bus tour that we did. Maybe, I don't know, time runs together, but I think it was last month perhaps. So thank you for that. I know you mentioned a lot of those same concerns, which we've taken back. And particularly, you know, in conversation with you, you mentioned to me the crosswalk situation, and that is something, as Chair of Recreation and Parks, that I immediately took back to the department to really ask for a review of how crosswalks are treated outside of all of our rec centers. Clearly, we want children using those facilities. They're designed for intergenerational, you know, play and recreation and stimulation, and so we are working with the department on that review, and it is thanks to you. So thank you for that, and you know, we won't lose sight of your specific request for it in your neighborhood as well. So with that, that concludes public testimony, which means that it is time to bring the hearing to a close. I want to emphasize a couple dates. First of all, the CIB was tabled at Monday's council meeting in order to hold these hearings. So it will be back up for consideration this coming Monday, November 1st. There is an additional hearing tomorrow at 3:30 p.m. The committee presentations will largely be the same. We're having 2 hearings so that people who are unable to join at one time can join at another. So if you did tune in today, you might not get any new information tomorrow, but you are more than welcome to also tune in then, sign up to testify if you'd like, and there will be additional public comment at that time. You know, possible different participation from council members as well. I also want to acknowledge that it is, you know, late October, early November that we're considering this capital budget. And if you look back over, you know, a decade at the city, that is not typically the timing at which we review capital budget. It's typically in the spring. Our schedule, the administration introduces the capital budget at the time that they see fit. And their schedule in doing so was pushed back due to COVID-19 and sort of uncertain revenue projections. Director Lombardi talked about the special income tax set aside that we do, that it's really based on revenue projections that we can even fund a capital budget. So there are some highly technical reasons for this timing, and council has requested that we move back to a spring schedule as early as feasible by the administration, so that for the public, we're considering a sort of spring, early summer capital budget. And then, in the fall and winter is when the introduction of the operating budget typically comes. And we like that spacing because we think it's easier for residents to follow the money. So just as a point of clarification, we hope to see a correction there coming next year. So thank you to the directors, the departments, the finance staff for your help in getting us to this point of the capital budget. Thank you to the council team, to my legislative assistant, James Carmine, to Matt Erickson, who does all of our finance and budget policy from the city council perspective. Thank you to the residents for engaging with us here today. I want to thank Mark Carter and CTV. And with that, we are concluded in our finance committee hearing, and we will see you all tomorrow for those who want to join again. Thank you.